Welcome into episode 492 of the Skate Podcast. I'm Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. The Boston Bruins have finally snapped at long last, Bridget and Scott, their 6-game regulation losing streak. And of all teams to do it against, the Colorado Avalanche, one of the top teams in the league, notwithstanding their record, whether they're the top team in the standings or not, they're always one of the top teams regardless. And their speed and skill is incredible. It was on full display in the first 15 minutes of the first period, but the Bruins, to their credit, found a way to get themselves going and hold on for the win.
Yeah, a team that had not lost in regulation until Saturday. That they have been racking up the overtime losses, oddly enough, because you would think that's a team that would dominate in 3-on-3 overtime, and I think they're like 1-4 now or something in overtime. But yeah, obviously we're gonna break it all down and get into it, but maybe Bruins don't get beauty points. Avalanche had a big edge and shots, scoring chances, all that stuff, all the analytics. But Bruins just needed any points. Like, they just needed a win, and they got it. Swayman was great. We'll get into that. They're opportunistic. Morgan Geekie at the end of the second period comes to mind. And they held, and I know this is going to get in, maybe go right into Brian's lead, but got extended and held a lead.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it, Scott. Like that was my biggest takeaway from the game, which is what was the biggest difference for the Bruins here. Well, finally they maintained and extended a lead. It's their first time extending a lead all season at 5-on-5. They did obviously extend the lead against Washington opening night and Buffalo in game 3, I want to say, but both of those were empty net goal situations and 6-on-5 situations. So it took them 10 games, and it wasn't just that it took them 10 games to maintain and extend a lead. It was the fact that it's been, I want to say the Bruins have 34 or 35 goals this year, something like that. I feel like 10 or 12 of them maybe were responded in short order by the opponent. It was a very common theme throughout the season so far, and still is a issue that they're gonna have to solve more consistently. But yes, you're winning the game 2-1, and Morgan Geekie just catches Mackenzie Blackwood sleeping in Josh Manson.
Scott Wedgwood, the other Wood.
Oh boy, how about this? He caught Colorado's goalie sleeping. Does that work?
There you go.
And Josh Manson, and obviously finds a way to extend the lead in the dying seconds of the period, which is a backbreaking goal for Colorado. So that was obviously huge.
And it means that they can't come back and score right after, because it happened with like 4 seconds left in the period. So
Exactly.
They couldn't come retaliate. Everybody had to go to the locker rooms for, and then come
Although
back.
I will say, I don't think there was a single soul in that arena, or a fan or analyst watching on TV, that was confident in those final 20 seconds after Colorado made it 3-2.
Oh no, definitely not.
Again, like, and I think Billy Jaffe may have said after the game, or maybe it was Brick, I forget, but he says it's only 20 seconds, but it was a big 20 seconds, and truly, like, you would think that should be an automatic, but for this Bruins team, it wasn't.
Yeah, you're right. Like, I'm sitting in the press box, and it's like, all right, like, you're into the final minutes. Like, all right, they got this. They'll hang on, and then they give up that goal, and it's like, yeah, whatever, garbage time goal. And then you kind of like think about it, and you're like, they're gonna get back into the zone here. Like, they could still have another chance, absolutely. Yeah. So that's the perfect way to put it. Like, only 20, but a big 20.
Well, and that's why the Geeky goal and the extending the lead was important, because you're up by 2 in the final minute and you give up an extra attacker goal. So if Geeky hadn't extended the lead there, that would have been tied again. And at that point, and I at least think maybe they go to overtime, but we've thought that a few times during this losing streak, and then it just didn't happen. So that's why extending the lead with Geeky scoring was really, really important. And it also shows that I've said this since they got him, like, he just thinks the game so fast. I think faster than other people do. And that's why he's able to score short side on that, instead of he fakes he's going around the net and then he pulls up short side and just tucks it right behind the post. He's a really smart player, and he's had a good start to his season so far. Should I go next? I guess.
Go ahead.
I think it makes more sense because this is also about the game. Scott's isn't quite. Victor Arvidsson got his first goal as a Bruin, and he's the one who starts out the scoring. And that's another really important goal. The Bruins go down early in the first 5 minutes of the game. They give up a goal to Lehkonen, and then Arvidsson comes back second half of the first period after the Bruins really got outplayed for the first, say, like 14 minutes of the game. Arvidsson comes back, scores, and then right after that, Eyssimont scores. So they had one of those back-to-back goal scoring situations in the first period and took away some of the momentum that the Avs had early on. But I just wanted to bring up Arvidsson because we had talked about him not doing a whole lot so far since coming to the Bruins. And though you can see his effort every shift, he was brought in as a high shot volume guy that was supposed to give you scoring in your top six. And so he needs to produce more, and he finally got his first one.
Yeah, points in 3 straight for him.
Yep.
That's something.
Celebrated by throwing the monkey off his back. Yeah, I mean that was a huge momentum swing. Like I was thinking, like as that first period is going on, I was like, Bruins will be lucky if they just keep this 1-0 going into the intermission, and then instead they end up with a 2-1 lead, and that Arvidsson goal really, obviously swung it, opened the door for Eyssimont to score again right after. Nice setup by Tanner Jeannot. My opening shift is about one of Victor Arvidsson's line mates, and that is Pavel Zacha, whose name continues to pop up in trade rumors, specifically as it relates to the Vancouver Canucks. There was some reporting out of Vancouver. Rick Dhaliwal, one of the local reporters there, I think that was on Friday, said that the Canucks continue to pursue Zacha, that he's basically been their priority. And then Elliot Friedman on Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday brought it up as well, said that that is true, that the Canucks have been in on Zacha, that it goes back to the summer, but also mentioned that the Bruins have set a high price, which is exactly what I said when we brought this up on Friday's episode. Is I'm not opposed to listening on Zacha because I kind of think this team where it is right now needs to be everyone who's not one of your pillars, and by that I mean Pastrnak, McAvoy, Swayman. And listen, look, if you wanted to argue, you should be open to getting blown away for McAvoy or Swayman too. Like, I'm not even opposed to that, but anyone else, absolutely, like you should be willing to listen on and see what teams want to offer. I do think the price for Pavel Zacha should be high. There is no reason that the Bruins need to trade him right now. He has another year left after this. He has a very good contract. He's off to a very good start. So if the Bruins are going to do anything this season, you would think Pavel Zacha is part of it. So if you're going to move him now, and essentially what would be, I mean, let's be honest, like that's kind of a throw in the towel move. Like you're telling the rest of the team, like, we don't believe in you if you trade, unless you're getting something notable back. But I don't really think you would be. I think it would be more for futures. Like it better be worth your while. Like it better be worth it to send that message to the team. And if it's a first round pick and a good prospect, yeah, to me, like that's probably worth it. I'm in a ruthless business. I'm probably okay with the rest of my team feeling shitty after that. Like that's just being honest about the Bruins situation. But if it's anything short of that, if we're talking about a second round pick in a lower tier prospect, like that's not going to do for me. Maybe different people have different prices that they would be willing to move Zacha for, but like I think I would need more.
I think that it would absolutely be punting on the season. Right now, Zacha's your second line center because they moved Middlestat to wing the last 2 games. So, and I think Sturm like Zacha better there at center, but yeah, he's a good player. I mean, his contract is so reasonable. I guess it makes sense, but to me, it doesn't make sense in Vancouver necessarily. Just I would think it would be more of a playoff team than I mean, I guess maybe they think they're just a piece or two away from being a playoff team, but yeah, if you're getting rid of Zacha, you're probably not getting an NHL ready or, like a person that's going to come help your team somehow make the playoffs. He plays a really key role, and yeah, you're going to be getting futures back, not an NHL guy. And I really think maybe these rumors are just like they happened in the summer. They're still interested, but maybe it's something we see at the trade deadline. If they were to do this trade in the next month, like say pre Thanksgiving, that's like giving up on your season already. Like it's just I could see them waiting to do it, but I don't know. It would definitely have to be a blow you away kind of trade to do it this time of year. I would think. Like, what's stopping Don Sweeney? Like, what does Don Sweeney care for his team? Like to do it this early in the season? That's only to benefit whoever's getting him, right? Like, especially if what you're getting back is a draft pick and a prospect that's not playing in the NHL. This would be that it only benefits the team receiving Zacha to do it this early in the season. It doesn't fucking matter to Don Sweet. Sorry, I swear.
Oh, it's okay. No FCC regulations here.
to Don Sweeney, like you can just do it at the trade deadline. So anyway, and he probably smarter to wait till the trade deadline if he's not blown away, because maybe there's competing offers and you can get more then. So
yeah, I think my takeaway is that if you're gonna trade Zacha, it has to be a home run deal, simply because of his value. I think he's a very important addition to a hopeful playoff contending team, and he's on term, and his cap hit's really affordable. So for those reasons alone, you have an asset. Oh, and by the way, you don't have to trade him, obviously. So a team is going to have to really wow you to receive him, and I think that's just the only way to look at it. As far as the timeline goes,
he doesn't have any no trade protection, right?
He has a modified no trade, but Vancouver's not a part of that, I don't think.
Yeah, that was reported over the weekend as well, that Vancouver is not on his no trade list.
But as far as the timeline goes, they don't have to wait until the trade deadline. But what I would say is it shouldn't be now either, because Bridget, to your point, and Scott, you kind of made this as well, to trade him right now, you really probably are conceding your season, at least in theory. It's possible that you get something back and your roster still is. But my point is that maybe they maybe they wait just a little bit. Maybe don't forget, this Bruins team just lost 6 games in a row prior to their win against Colorado, and they are 30th in the league in goals against. So if it's a month from now, and Bridget, you mentioned Thanksgiving, but if you're approaching Thanksgiving and that's still who Boston is, then I would argue Boston themselves, the team, the players, have conceded on their season because they aren't good enough. And maybe Vancouver's still in the mix. So, but to counter that, if the Bruins show that this stretch of play in October has been more of the anomaly and they get themselves above water, then maybe you do think about, okay, now let's push it to at least the trade deadline. So I would say I agree with both of you. I don't think right now in October makes sense, because also if Vancouver's interested now, they'll be interested in a month, right? Like it doesn't seem like there's a huge rush to get Vancouver what they want.
Yeah, and I think from Vancouver's perspective, we heard Cam Neely at the Bruins season opening press conference acknowledge that they had tried to add offense, that they were still going to look during the season, and you kind of throw that out there to, like, I think both to let your fans and your players know, like, hey, like, we still want to make you better, whether how much truth is behind that or not. you're putting that out there that like we still want to get better. We know we're not there. Well, Vancouver knows the biggest hole in their roster is another top 6 center to go with Elias Pettersson. Obviously, they had one in JT Miller, and that blew up and didn't work out last year, and they had to move him. But I think keeping this rumor, keeping these talks alive, signals to both their fan base and their team, like, we know we still have to address this. We're looking for it. We're trying out here. So whether that gets to the point where a deal actually gets done, obviously remains to be seen. And that's why, if you're Don Sweeney again, like, you're in the, I know it might not seem like it just record wise, but like, you're in the position of strength here. You're in the driver's seat. You're the one who has the player that you don't have to trade, that another team apparently really wants. Like, all you have to do is like set a high price and wait until it's met. And if it's not, then you hold on to him. Like, it's not a bad spot to be in. And I would also know you would have to get something from Vancouver in terms of salary, because the Canucks are a cap team. They're right up against it. So they would not be able to just take Zacha on without moving out some salary. But I don't know who that would be. Like, I don't.
That'd be like a 3-team trade probably then, because like somebody's probably gonna have to. I don't. You know what I mean? Like, if the Bruins don't want to take someone, I guess it depends who it is and what they would need them for.
Yeah,
but.
I mean, like, just looking at it, it's like a guy who would make sense money wise that I'm sure Vancouver would probably be willing to move is Philip Hedl, but I don't think I'd really want him if I'm the Bruins. Like, the injury concerns are just off the charts there, and would really worry me. He's out again now after taking a huge hit from Tom Wilson. What was that, like a week and a half ago?
Wasn't he supposed to be their second line center?
I mean, that exactly. Like,
So
that was the idea.
you're giving them Zacha to take
the guy who already
miscast?
failed to fill that role that they're trying to fill. Yeah, like, I'm not super interested in that.
That's why, and to your point, Scott, about them being in a position of strength. This is why if they trade this player, and I'm not saying that trading him isn't what's best long term for this Bruins team. If you feel like beyond his current contract, you don't think he might be in Bruin, then
I would think that he would want to be. Like, he already had a house here. He already had a house.
He might want to be. He might want to be. But does Don Sweeney's what's his projected next contract? Does Don Sweeney see him as part of it? It's not just about the players' wants there.
No,
right? It's about the team.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, from his side of things,
I'm sure he does.
He's happy here. I mean, he plays with David Pastrnak, fellow countrymen, that they're friends and they get along really well. And he had an apartment in Boston pre even getting traded here that he stayed in the summer. And I think he was renting it out to some of the other Czech players on the Bruins before he came here. So he obviously likes it here.
I don't think this is a conversation about Pavel Zacha wanting to be traded. It's
No, but I'm saying, like, in terms of, like, you're not gonna. I don't think at the end of his current contract he's gonna be like, I'm out, like, I'm leaving. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
No, but if he but I mean, they might just have different ideas of value. Like, he might just want more money than the Bruins are willing to give him. So,
but whether it's Vancouver or somebody at the trade deadline, where you have some sort of bidding war, because I can guarantee you guys, if the Bruins feel like what Vancouver's giving them or offering them isn't an optimal return, whether it's now, next month, or at the trade deadline, I guarantee you that somebody would knock the Bruins' socks off for a player of Zacha's caliber and fit on a potential playoff team, in addition to him having another year after this with a $4.75 million cap hit. And obviously the ability to extend them throughout that process too. So I think he's a valuable, coveted asset. And if you're going to move him, whether it's Vancouver or somebody else, it has to be for the best return. And if that best return is from Vancouver and it's now or next month, then you better be right. Because I do think that come the trade deadline, I do think that there would be teams willing to make you open your eyes a little bit and say, oh, okay, all right, well, we like Pavel, but we can't say no to that.
Yeah. I mean, my question too, just because to say it does happen, right? And not even talking about like if it happens this month or like say it happens at some point during this season. And just what's your next, like who's your next second line center? Because if Casey Middlestat is not that guy, then who is it?
Well, you got Elias Lindholm under contract for a bit more, and presumably that there'll be some significant overlap there with the beginning of James Hagen's career. So maybe in time, like maybe James Higgins is your number 2 center as
But
soon as
like
next year, and
probably,
then they
yeah,
switch. I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's ideal. I'm just saying I'm answering the question. I think that it's. I mean, you have Middlestat, you have Patra, you have Higgins on the way. It has to be probably one of those, unless one of them is traded. Obviously, in Middlestat.
Right. Like if you're not, if given truth serum, you're not really trying to win this year, then you probably don't particularly care like how you fill that the rest of this season, because you're, to Brian's point, like you're looking at it like starting as early as next year. However they line up on the depth chart, your top 2 centers are Higgins and Lindholm, and then you move forward with that. So, in the short term, and this actually touches on an email we got from Ben, who emailed us over the weekend, said, if a Zacha trade does happen, do you keep Middlestat on the wing and bring up Patra for 2C? I could see something like that. So yeah, either like Middlestat goes back to center, you fill out the wing, or maybe you give Patra that chance if he's playing well and he's earned it, which so far he has played well down in Providence. So maybe you would do something like that, and that doesn't mean it would have to be for the rest of the season, but you give it a look and see how it goes.
Yeah, wouldn't it have to be Potter that got called up? I know we've talked about like, Lysell and Blumel also, but like if in particular it's to fill a center role, like those guys aren't centers. So it would kind of have to be Potter or Merkelov, I guess, but more than likely Patra. So
Yeah, well, or it's Middlestat goes back to center and then you call up the wing.
But still, does Blumel play both sides?
Yeah, he plays both sides.
Okay.
But that's also the thing with Zacha is it depends on what night you're looking at this past year so far. I mean, is the Bruins already utilized him just as much, if not more so, in the last calendar year as a winger at times. So it's you could argue even when he's in the lineup that he's still not your number 2 center. He could be, right? But the way that they use him differently depending on how Middlestat's going and whatnot. So it's more or less just like you got to fill a top 6 role, right? And arguably somebody who's capable of playing both. But in any event, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. We'll keep tabs on this as this story goes along. Do you have any final thoughts on this rumor? Is there anybody from Vancouver's side of the aisle that, I mean, you mentioned Hito, Scott, from like a cap perspective, but any prospects? Obviously, they have. I just closed the tab, but is it Coates? They're 2025 first round pick.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know if he's. But hey, but it's like if you want Zacha, you got to give us something that you value.
Yeah, I almost feel like the Bruins would have to throw something else in. I mean, Coots almost made their team out of camp. Like he was making like a real push, and I think they really like him.
The Bruins really like Zacha, and he's an established top 6 forward on a good term. So it's like that. But I'm playing
like,
devil's advocate. But if you're Sweeney, this is how you have to approach it.
Yeah.
Right. And like if you go back, remember over the summer we brought up the Athletic did one of their mock drafts, and it was like the beat writers from every team making the picks. And they had trades involved, and the Canucks writer, I think it was Thomas Drance, had them trading whatever pick that was, 16th overall or whatever, for Zacha
With Hoglander, right? Niels Hoglander.
Yeah, and that was that was the pick they ended up using on Coots. So,
yep.
Yeah, I mean that obviously that's just one writer, but like that's someone who, at least in that case, put like a first round, was okay giving up a first rounder for Zacha. So yeah, and throwing in Hoglander. So, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, do I think you can get Braden Coots in a Zacha trade? I don't know, but like absolutely like what your starting point should be. Like you might as well aim high and see what happens.
Well, and Vancouver's in a tricky spot too because you have Quinn Hughes, who I believe is his contract, I want to say, expires the year after next or after next season. And I'm not saying that Quinn Hughes won't be a lifelong Vancouver Canuck, but there's always been these rumors of him wanting to play with his brothers, and Vancouver's been a bit of a dumpster fire at times over the last couple of years. And so there could be an element where Vancouver wants to bring in some NHL proven in their prime players to maybe help appease the the idea that they're competing now, right? Like, does Quinn Hughes want to be? I don't know. Like, who would Quinn Hughes rather have as a teammate right now? A 28-year-old Pavel Zacha or an 18-year-old who's not currently in the league? I don't know. It's just something to think about. You have to keep your stars happy, is all I'm saying. So, we'll keep tabs on it.
Which
Jack and
obviously-
Luke, that's who he wants as teammates.
yeah.
But yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah, that's true.
But obviously this same thing could be said for Boston Stars, right? Like I know we're gonna get
Fair point.
comments on this video. Well, that's gonna piss off David Pastrnak because you traded his friend and his countryman, and
Probably true.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yep.
Mhm.
Keeping your
So-
stars happy goes both ways. So, okay. Let us jump back to the Colorado game. To spend some time on that. And yeah, I just think that it was they came out looking very tight and afraid of their own shadow. Felt like watching that. Yes, it was, obviously Colorado's speed and skill was overwhelming the Bruins for sure. I think that's front and center. I think secondary, the Bruins were feeling the weight and the gravity of their 6-game losing streak, and I just feel like they were playing tentative, afraid to make mistakes, and those first 14, 15 minutes, it really, it's funny. I was in the middle of tweeting when Arvidsson scored that these two teams don't even look like they're in the same league, and that's really how it looked. And I think me not pressing send on that tweet illustrates the fact that Arvidsson's goal was huge for them because it obviously turned their fortunes around and they started playing a lot better the rest of the game. And hopefully, in general, the win for them can help them play a little bit more loose, free, going forward, a little bit more confidence and swagger. But that's obviously something we'll keep tabs on tonight when they play Ottawa.
Yeah, I mean that they should start to feel a little better. Like again, that this team was so you could tell just how frustrated they were, that they felt like they were battling, they were coming back. Like I think they mostly liked their efforts. They were just making too many mistakes, mental, physical, whatever. But I think they feel like they didn't, and I always hesitate to use the word deserve, but like you got the sense that they felt that they didn't deserve to be on a 6-game losing streak. Certainly not all in regulation. Like they felt like 2 or 3 of those games should have gotten to overtime, and they're probably right. Like,
well, yeah,
the last 2, especially Florida and Anaheim, they just gave away at the end. Those games should have been in overtime. So like that's where like the just dejection really set in. Was like, man, we went through all of that and we didn't even get a point. So yeah, just to get anything, and especially to get a regulation win over the Avalanche, however it looked, however poor the start, however badly you got outshot, like that, it should be something to build on. And we'll see. As we've said before, like relentless schedule. Right now, you go to Ottawa Monday night, and then you travel back to Boston. You face the Islanders on Tuesday. It's not easy, but Ottawa has gotten off to a tough start of their own, although they just had big win over the weekend, 7-1. But I think a team that probably still has some questions about themselves. So yeah, it should be at least an opportunity to build on it and see if they can get some momentum going.
I think that Tampa game was winnable too, which was the game that started the losing streak. It was like a matinee game, was kind of sloppy both sides, and it could have been one. They ended up losing by a goal. And I think they outshot them by with 10 10 shots more than them or so. It was a winnable game, which was, like I said, the very first one. It was at home, and it was the first one of the 6-game losing streak. Ottawa definitely is a team that is not at full strength right now. Obviously missing Tkachuk, and Allmark hasn't been playing well either. So, I mean, you could catch him right now and you take advantage of those two facts. That, I mean, Allmark's a good goalie. I highly doubt he's going to have a season like the rest of a season be as bad as it has been to start. So maybe you catch him in a downtime, but you know he's going to try to give a strong performance against his old team and whatnot. So it's a back-to-back as well. So I don't know if they go Swayman first night, Monday night at 7:30, or Tuesday night, 7:15 puck drop at home against the Islanders. So obviously it seems like they'll split them, but I just don't know which one's going to be playing first. So.
I just to weigh in on that, I think I would go Korpisalo in Ottawa. You get a little bit of that, like he wants to take care of business against his old team. I think that helps. And then Swayman on the second night of the back-to-back, when you might need to lean on your goalie more, like that's probably how I would do it. But you're right, like either way that they're gonna split.
Well, and Korpisalo needs a bounce back performance. We talked about the Anaheim game, and there was some lapses in defensive zone coverage, which has been a theme this year as well. But there were a couple of squeakers I thought that Korpisalo should have. I didn't like the Cutter Gauthier goal. I didn't like the Jacob Trouba goal. Those two come to mind. But I would say Korpisalo most nights this year has been good for the Bruins. His numbers, he's been better than his numbers would indicate. I feel like the Bruins have left him out to dry a lot at times, and he's given them chances to win most nights, but their team defense has been so bad at times that sometimes the goalie numbers are gonna slip. But Jeremy Swayman, I want to talk about him for a second, because I would say the Vegas game, I didn't love his performance. There was some funny, unfortunate puck luck throughout that game for Boston as well. But outside of the Vegas game, I feel like Jeremy Swayman has been pretty damn good this month. A lot of games he's played in, he's had save percentages above 900. And let's face it, he was a big question mark coming into this year. I wouldn't say that question mark is completely answered at this point, but it's definitely been an encouraging start. And I thought he was very, very good against Colorado, and clearly was. I would say he was Boston's number one star. I think he had 29 saves on 31 shots, but I mean that Colorado team came fast and furious early on, and I just think Swayman was there for them.
Yeah, I think it ended up being 31 on 33.
31, thank you. Yep.
But yeah, he was great. Definitely the number one star. I do think the Bruins, even for as much time as they spent in their own zone, I thought maybe after that start, after they got the lead and settled down, I do actually think they did a pretty good job of keeping Colorado to the outside and letting Swayman see shots. Until the extra attacker goal, which obviously there was a ton of traffic. McKinnon just rips a shot that Lehkonen tips in. But nonetheless, like they still had some high dangers, some real scoring chances in there as well. And Swayman stepped up. He was on his game. I just thought he looked so calm like the whole night. I tweeted at one point, like pucks were sticking to him. There really weren't any bad rebounds. He was in control. Even deflected shots, like some of that's, he even said after the game, he's like, a lot of that's just positional, but he was in good position. And so shots are getting tipped and he was just holding on to them. They're just getting stuck in his pads. And that's just, I think that can be like so assuring for the team in front of them to see that, even if you have a little bit of a breakdown, or even if there is traffic, that your goalie's just in the perfect spot and not giving up rebounds. Like it makes your job easier, because you're not constantly worried about like, oh boy, if we let anything through, it might go in. So last week I heard on both stations like Swayman getting ripped and people putting, in my mind, way more of that losing streak on him than I thought he deserved. Like you're right. Vegas game, maybe wants 1 or 2 back. And you could probably pick out a couple others here or there, but I thought he was off to a good start even when he had his own, within that 6-game losing streak, he had a personal 3-game losing streak. Korpisalo was in for the other 3. But I've liked Swayman's start to the year for the most part. Certainly the first couple games he was really good. And then maybe just okay, okay to good, like maybe needed to be better. But then really good Saturday. And if you look at goal save above expected, which is interesting. Like I heard Razor talking about this on our afternoon show, saying like this has kind of become like the number one stat everyone's using for goalies, and he's even talking about like within goalie circles. Well, Swayman's 8th in the NHL now by goals saved above expected. He's a top 10 goalie this season, so that's sure you'd love for him to get even higher, right? Be a top 5 goalie, but I have a really hard time complaining about him playing like a top 10 goalie so far.
Yeah. I thought he had 2 and just so specifically in the Avs win in the third period had some saves I'd call like bailout saves. Like he was there when there were turnovers in the third period when the Bruins were up by 2 and didn't allow the lead to get chipped away at. So I think he, in particular, in a third period where you really needed to not allow anything, he did a good job. And then obviously we talked about the extra attacker goal. That one wasn't on him. So yeah, I'm shocked. Actually, I haven't listened to either station recently, so I don't know what they've been saying about Swayman, but that surprised me a little bit just because I think that there's a lot of other ways to point fingers besides at him. So,
well, in the first goal too wasn't on him either, and I wanted to touch on that because there was a reconfiguration of the D pairs for the Colorado game, and I'm curious your opinions on how they looked. Mason Lohrei had a 3-assist game, and I thought McAvoy and Zadorov looked pretty good together for the most part. But their first or second shift out there, they again, same story, different day on a McAvoy pairing where both defensemen overcommit behind the goal line and leave somebody open in front. And both Zadorov and McAvoy, they both went at McKinnon, and he makes a gorgeous behind the backhand pass to the slot to Lehkonen. So, it's a world-class play by McKinnon, but he takes advantage of an overcommitment, and Lehkonen is all alone in front, and I can't put that one on Swayman, right? That's a world-class pass and an in-tight finish, but not a great start for the Zadorov McAvoy pairing, but I do think they settled in, and obviously Lohrei had 3 assists on the day, which doesn't speak to his defensive metrics. But how did you feel like the D pairs played on Saturday, Sunday?
Yeah, I think
Saturday.
solid for the most part. Like I said, like you'd like to get out of your zone a little bit more than they did at times. McAvoy and Zadorov obviously got the toughest matchup. They saw a lot of the McKinnon line, which is probably the best line in the NHL right now with Lehkonen and Nachas, the way that they've been going to start the year. So, only being out for 1 goal against until the extra attacker situation, like you'll take that ultimately. You're right though that goal was another frustrating one to watch because, and I didn't ask Sturm after the game because obviously there was probably a lot more to cover. But I am interested like how that should have been played, because if you look at, and there's like a good overhead view of their coverage on it, they're clearly in man, right? Like everyone's on a guy, and McAvoy is on McKinnon to start. Zadorov is on Lehkonen in the slot. And then McKinnon dives down behind the net and kind of, fakes McAvoy out a little, and McAvoy goes in front of the net, but like doesn't immediately just beeline to McKinnon, like almost kind of like slows down in front of the net, like he's going to stay there, and then starts to go to McKinnon. And like in that split second, Zadorov also leaves his guy Lehkonen to go after McKinnon. So it's like either everyone's staying with their guy and McAvoy should just chase McKinnon and Zadorov should stay where he was, or you have to communicate a switch where like maybe as McKinnon goes low and McAvoy goes to the front, yell out switch or whatever, and McAvoy then takes Lehkonen and Zadorov goes after McKinnon. But it seems like both of them just got caught in the middle, and we're like, oh well, I guess I'll go after McKinnon. But like by the time you hesitate, it's too late, and now Lehkonen's open behind you. Like, yeah, I know the Bruins have played a lot more zone for years, really, and Sturm acknowledged that. He said like guys who have been here like 6-7 years have probably never played man on any kind of regular basis, but it's not like it's that complicated. Like, I'm guessing everyone on the team has played man at some point, so it you are kind of like now you're 10 games in. You got to figure it out at some point. Like there shouldn't continue to be these kind of mix-ups, especially not between your top players, like on a nightly basis.
Yeah, and that was when we at the end of the last loss where we spoke to Zadorov and McAvoy after. I think they both said that they didn't think it had to do with like their defensive system, right? Except for when McAvoy was asked, did he just lose the guy in coverage? And he was just like, yeah. But
no, he was asked if there was a miscommunication. He said,
oh yeah, miscommunication. He was like, yeah. But yeah, I mean, most of them have said that it wasn't the system, and that it's more of a individual basis of like mental lapses. But I mean, maybe it has to do with handling the system or adapting to the system. It's defense in that losing streak was obviously a major problem we talked about. But to your question, Brian, about the pairs, Laura was with Peak, ended up being a +2, which on the season I think brings them to even. So as plus minus, I only bring this up because of his plus minus last year. The numbers, he's -41 or something like that. Right now he's even after last game. And I think it just wasn't as noticeable in terms of making defensive mistakes. So he had a better game against the Avs. So I'd be surprised if they change the pairs unless Lindholm's back, which Hampus Lindholm being out and Harris being on IR. These are Callahan's up from Providence on the third pair with Yoki Haru. So it's like those are the pairs right now until Lindholm gets healthy, because Harris will be a little bit longer. He's not getting surgery, but he's on IR.
Well, he might get surgery. So Sturm was asked about that on Saturday pregame, and was asked like, is surgery a possibility? And he was like, well, we're gonna know more in the next couple of days. So sounds like surgery unfortunately could be a possibility there.
Originally they had said that they didn't think it was going to need it, but yeah, I guess maybe that changed or is changing over this week. But
and should also note like Hampus Lindholm now on injured reserve as well, which was to get an extra body up as they go to Ottawa. So Jonathan Aspero is up. If people remember, he was the final cut on defense. He had a good camp. Sturm liked him. And was when they got down to 8 defensemen, he was one of the 8, and then he was the final cut with Jordan Harris staying as the 7th guy. So, I think probably I'm sure you guys did as well. Like, why not call up Frederic Brunet? I think it's just because this is an extra defenseman. I think Asper is going to be the 7th guy now with both Lindholm and Harris out. Callahan already in the lineup. Brunet got to play Sunday down in Providence instead of being on a flight to Ottawa. I think that helps. And like if he's not going to play in a game up here, I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to call him up. So, and as far as Lindholm going to IR, because again, I think people see that and natural reaction is like, oh my God, how much more time is going to miss. It really doesn't mean anything in that respect because he's already missed enough time. So he can still, the move to IR is retroactive to when the injury happened. And you only have to miss 7 days on injured reserve. He's already missed that. So they can still activate him at any point once he's healthy enough to play.
Yeah. And obviously not going to Ottawa, but then they have 2 home games after that this week, Tuesday and Thursday. Does he get activated for one of those? He's been out much longer than I think originally anticipated based on at least what we were told right after in that first week after the injury. And then it's interesting because he's been practicing and just never, and he's not even really been like a game time decision. He played the 1 game on the road trip, and then since then, which they've been back for a while now, hasn't played. And it's concerning, obviously, the longer it goes, and his history with his injuries. Yeah.
Well, you guys can certainly think what you would like going forward. I'm going to choose to think that they'll be without him more this year than they'll be with him. I mean, when I think of this Bruins team and Hampus Lindholm, I just, and I've said this before, and it sucks to say it, but it feels like it's going to be one thing or one thing after another. And I feel like I'd be a fool to sit here and rely on his availability when he's played, 2.5 hockey games in the last calendar year and has missed over 70 now. So I hope for the best for him, but I just I can't count on him being available, and until he is consistently, that's just how I'm going to feel about it. But I want to give you guys some numbers here after 10 games. Yeah, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just to add to that though, like you better be wrong that the Bruins are so screwed if that's the case.
I hope I am.
You have 4 years left, $6.5 million a year. Like, I
more so meant this year, just to clarify.
Yeah, I mean, but this is why, like I said last week, like you just have to get him right. I know it's frustrating to go through this game by game right now, and hey, he's not just pushing to come back at 80%, but like you don't want that. I know in the moment it's hard to feel that way, but like whatever this is that he's dealing with, and it seems like it's some sort of soft tissue thing, maybe groin. Like you just got to get it right.
Mhm.
Because you don't want him in and out. You don't want him, did this happen because he was compensating for the knee and then he comes back and now he's compensating for this and injure something that, like, injuries beget injuries if you don't let them heal correctly. So you have to get him right, and you just have to hope that happens, and you have to hope once he is healthy that it stays because I mean, if he's going to be dealing with stuff the rest of the year, then you might as well start selling off pieces because this season's over.
And waiting to get it right is part of my calculation when I say I can't rely on him being out there, because he wouldn't be out there I'm not saying I disagree with it. Like I want him to be right, to your point, Scott. But if that takes time, that means he's not out there. So I guess we'll see. And yeah, it'll be tough sledding without him. But
and it's obviously a much better defensive team with him in rather than
sure,
Callahan or Aspero in the lineup. So
yeah, absolutely. So some numbers through 10 games here, and I want you guys to comment on what stands out to you, what may be sustainable, might not be sustainable, what's surprising, anything like that. So through 10 games, they're 6th in the league in goals for. They're 29th in goals against. If you add that up, they're 23rd in team goal differential. They're 8th in the penalty kill, 87.2%, and they're 19th in the power play, clicking at 19.4%. They have a 4-6-0 record for 8 points, as we know. But the most important stat is
can I cut you off for a second?
Yeah.
Just because the goal, I think you're looking at total goals, right?
What do you mean?
For scoring?
Yep.
Yeah, so
Goals for?
I would also just note goals per game because they have played. I think they're tied for the most games played so far.
Correct.
15th in goals per game.
Oh, great distinction. Okay. What about goals against per game? I guess
They
that
are.
that might actually hurt them, honestly.
25th goals against per game.
Okay. So it slightly helps their it slightly hurts their goal production, but it slightly favors their defense. But in any event, the most important stat is that they're eighth in the Atlantic Division. And as Scott mentioned, they have played 10 games, which is tied for the most in the division. Now, you have 3 games to end this month. One of them is against Ottawa, divisional opponent. Another one's against Buffalo, another divisional opponent. Wait, hold on a second. Is Buffalo really ahead of the Bruins in the division right now? Yes, they are. Oh, wait, no, I'm looking at goals for. Hold on one second. Points. Yeah, okay, yeah, they're still eighth, and Buffalo is ahead of them. All right, so yeah, the Bruins, they got to win some games because if they don't win these games, these situations we talked about earlier with Pavel Zacha, like, yeah, if the Bruins themselves get behind too far, then you can't sit there and say, oh, they gave up on their season because you know what? Now you're talking about being a month and a half, 2 months into the season, and you're last in the division. So I would say the next 3 games here to end October are sneaky big points for them because they can either win out or win 2 of 3 and you're 500 or better to end the first month of the year and you're right in the mix, or you could lose the next 3 or 2 of 3 and you got your work cut out for you.
Yeah, I think there's a reason why Morgan Geekie brought it up already. Not last game. Was it 2 games ago? What game was that after?
Yeah, that was after the Anaheim game.
Yeah, the question was about, is there anything glass half full? And he was just like, no, we saw what happened. When we played poorly last year and all of our friends got shipped out. So, I mean, we're already at that point where the conversation's being had and it's on the front of some of these guys' minds who went through it last year. So yeah, they are important games, and because they dug that 6-game hole throughout, the middle of October.
Yeah, it's funny, like just looking at point totals, and you're like, oh, they're only like a point out of a playoff spot. Again, they've played more games than a lot of these teams. In terms of points percentage, 400, 4-6 record gives them a 400 points percentage. It's tied for the worst in the East, along with the Rangers. But you don't really have anyone off to in the Eastern Conference. You don't really have anyone off to like a truly horrendous start. Like out west, there's a couple teams off to like really bad starts where the goal differential is already stacking up against them. I'm looking at San Jose, Calgary, even Minnesota is a -11. In the East, like Bruins are a -3. No one in the conference is worse than a -4. Like it's weird. The East doesn't really have the bottom hasn't fallen out on anyone yet. So it's kind of all stacked up. Like you have New Jersey has, gained some separation at the top. They're 8-1. In the Atlantic Division, you have the Canadians at 7-3. So it's really still jumbled together, which is probably the good news if you're the Bruins. Like you're not, yeah, a 6-game losing streak catches your attention, and obviously is not good. But even with that, like you haven't completely fallen out of this yet. No one has. So, like that should give you some reason for optimism if you can string together a couple wins or, play better than 500 hockey for a stretch. Like you're going to be around it, and you're not going to get to that point that Morgan Geekie, feared at just a few days ago, where like the season already starts to slip away from you early on. Now, if they follow up a big win over Colorado with like 3 more losses, then all right, well, that's how it does start to slip away from you when your whole season just becomes trying to break losing streaks. Like that's not going to be good enough. So, Yeah, that they're around it right now. So that's the encouraging news.
Yeah, I mean, right now the month can go. It can go. They can finish the month as good as 7-6, or they can finish the month as bad as 4-9, and then anywhere in between. And to be honest with you guys, I mean, you have a struggling Senators team without their captain. You have a Buffalo team that you've already beaten this year, and an Islanders team that, as you said last episode, Scott, can't wait to see Matthew Schaefer in action. But I mean, that Islanders team is anything but spectacular. So there are 3 winnable games for the Bruins. But you look at the Atlantic Division right now, and it's only a month into this. It's not even a month into the season, and you have Toronto and Tampa Bay at 7-6 in the Atlantic Division. But you look at those and you say, okay, that's just early season blues. You look at the Bruins at 8th, and it's like that's where people predicted them to be around. So they need to prove that is like, I don't think anyone's looking at Toronto and Tampa's start and being like, oh, they're going to finish that far in the division. But the Bruins have to prove that's not who they are this year. And they have winnable games to do it to end this month. And so there's no excuses to lose 2 out of 3. I don't care if the Bruins themselves aren't the greatest team. When your season, I think their season's in the balance in these next 3 games. I really do. I don't think this team's going to come. You've already lost 6 games in a row this month. You cannot afford to lose 2 out of 3 to end this month. I'm sorry, but their season, I think, will be over shortly if they don't win 2 or 3 of these games, in my opinion.
I think that's very fair. And and like I don't want to sound too optimistic here, because you're right. Like, if you just look at the way this division is and you're like, all right, predict right now who finishes last in this division. Well, we had the Bruins pretty low to begin with, and they're currently last. I would have to predict the Bruins to finish last as we're sitting here today. So, like, that again, but it's their job to change that narrative. I did want to point out, because you brought up some numbers, the one that I continue to look at that just has me concerned: 5-on-5 expected goals. So expected goal percentage. Bruins are 29th in the NHL right now, 44.5% expected goal share. Like, that tells a story of a team that is giving up a lot more scoring chances than they're getting. And I think if you watch these games, that reflects. They are 20th in expected goals for. So, which they were much lower. They were down at like 31 at one point. I think they were even dead last at one point. So they've started to create some more chances, which is encouraging. They are 31st in expected goals against, or 30th rather. Sorry, don't want to shortchange them. 30th, third worst in expected goals against. So, I said earlier, like, I don't really think goaltending's been the biggest issue. Like, that to me is the biggest issue, is how many chances they're giving up defensively, especially at 5-on-5. It should. We were talking about, like, can this be a top 10 defense? Right now, it's a bottom 5 defense. Like, that has to drastically change for this team to do anything.
Well, that's when a Lindholm injury really takes into effect. I mean, if you go down Lindholm, I mean, it changes everything. Everybody's slotted differently and whatnot. But I mean,
and we were talking about, like, obviously this was a preseason conversation we had when Lindholm hadn't gotten injured yet, which only took 2 games into the season. But it was a conversation we had before that.
Exactly. And as far as the offensive generation, Scott, the numbers that you mentioned and how they rank low in that category, that's why when you see rhetoric among fans saying, "Oh, offense isn't the issue," it's like, okay, yes, no, technically, you're right. Offense has not been the issue in terms of goals scored, but when you look at their offensive generation and how they've struggled to do so, when you talk about sustainability, it's like, okay, how sustainable is this offense? Because you're right. Insert Bruins fan or analyst here. It hasn't been the issue so far, but is it a strength going forward? And I feel like, again, if Lindholm's out for a long stretch of time here, my opinion on this definitely changes. But if he were in the lineup, you would think that the Bruins team defense would get better as the year goes along, and their offense might come back down to earth a bit and meet somewhere in the middle. But without Lindholm, it's all of a sudden it just changes the trajectory of their decor. One of 6 guys makes a big difference, especially if he's your second best defenseman.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to get to this Minten question that we got in the mailbag before we go?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is a good way to end.
All right. So I'll read it. I have it up. Sam sent this mailbag question to us. She says, question for you all. I just saw tonight, meaning after the last game against Avs, I just saw tonight that Minten has 1 point in 10 games so far. Last fall, when Patra had numbers like that, he was sent down to Providence to work on his confidence and his skills before coming back up. Can you explain to me why Minten is the exception here? Why isn't he being sent down to Providence to work on his offense when he isn't producing? Sweeney and Neely always emphasize results, and there are plenty of guys putting up impressive numbers down in Providence right now. It seems like there's one set of rules for Minten and another for everyone else right now. That can't sit well with all the guys down in Providence who are doing exactly what Sweeney asked them to do.
So I think it's a fair question, just being asked maybe a week or two too early. So I went back and looked, and for Patra, it was he played 14 games before getting sent down. He was also a scratch, or maybe missed like a game or two in there. So it was like early November by the time he got sent down. And he actually had 4 points, so better than 1. But I think Minten contributes more defensively. So there's a trade-off there, but no, it is a fair question. Like, if Minten is just stuck on 1 point, which by the way came in overtime, so 0 points at 5-on-5.
Hell of a point, though. Hell of a point.
Yeah, I mean, a great play.
1 point for 2 points.
And like, by the way, like, he's had chances and he's helped create chances. They're just not they're not going in. So I think you got to give this a few more games, and then let's see what happens. His ice time has been fluctuating. He was back under 10 minutes Saturday against Colorado. He had a 7.5 minute game a few games ago. And like in between, he had I think a 14-minute game. So Sturm's kind of still, you can tell like there's games where he thinks Minten is on and is going to roll him out there regularly. And then there's been a couple of these games where he's felt the need to rein him in and reel back his minutes. And I think if those games start to pile up where even take the points out of it, but the minutes are getting slashed and Sturm's using him less, which means he's trusting him less, that's when I think a demotion to Providence becomes realistic, because that did happen with Patra as well, where he was like, Patra was around like 13, 14 minutes a game out of the gate last year. And by the time he got sent down, he was averaging like 10, 11 a game. So that's usually a really good indicator of sort of how the current staff is viewing the player.
Last game he was at 9 minutes and 40 seconds, which is the least for anyone on the team. So
yeah, and that was the second time in 3 games he was last on the team in ice time.
Yeah, and I mean, it's noticeable too, because I think I mentioned to you, Scott, like when they shortened the bench, he hadn't been out there in a while. And I was like, I feel like I haven't seen Minten. And then the stats end up after the game bearing it out that he just really wasn't out there too much. And it would be fair to send him down, I guess, after, like Scott said, maybe give him another week or so. But once again, we're in the position. It's like, is it just a 1-for-1, call up Patra, send down Minten, or is there some other way that this ripples, with what they decide to do? I was just looking at the AHL stats too. Patra has 6 assists in 6 games, no goals yet. Riley Tufte has the 3rd most points in the AHL right now. He has, I think, 10 points in 6 games, and then the leader of the points leader in the AHL right now is Danton Heinen. and he's
Aw.
got 12 points.
That's like sending Gretzky down there.
Yeah, I mean, that's not fair. I mean, he's been an NHLer for the last several seasons. Anyway, I didn't even realize he was playing in the AHL right now until I just was looking up the Bruins stats and just he's leading, I guess. But
One other thing too, just to add, because you guys kind of hit it all with Patra, or Minten, sorry, but one people may not like this answer, but I feel like something else that comes into play here that coaches, management may or may not admit to is, especially when you look at Minten versus Lysell, Patra, Merkulov, hell, even Blumel, Steves, right? Minten has he has a better NHL frame, a better NHL build, and coaches may or may not admit this in media scrums, but that if you see Minten stay longer than even Patra did last year with less offensive production, if that ends up being the case, I do think there's something to be said about an NHL coach trusting his players when it comes to their ability to handle the physicality of the level. And I think that there's no doubting that Minten's frame is obviously bigger and stronger than Patra at this stage and some of the other peers down in Providence.
Yeah, it
Yep.
is a especially the top part of it. It's a smaller roster down there in Providence, and you're right to bring it up because like that does factor in as well. Not Riley Tufte though. He's not small.
Oh, no, not
no.
Riley Tufte. Okay. Do either of you have any final thoughts before we sign out here?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay,
Me too.
Bridget. Yep. All right. So before we go, we had a listener send us an email at the skate pod, and his name is Kevin. And Kevin wanted us to mention, and we appreciate it because I did my own research on it afterwards, and it's just wildly impressive. But Boston, I just want to pull it up here real quick. Where did it go? So the 2025 USA Blind Hockey Classic is taking place at the Wellesley Sports Center in Wellesley, November 21st through November 23rd. And if you go to www.usahockey.com/blind hockey classic, you can learn all about how to support and even attend and cheer on the players. And what the event essentially is a it's putting on display blind and visually impaired hockey players from across the nation. And Bridget and Scott was looking at some YouTube videos recently of blind hockey, and it's very, very, very impressive. I didn't know really anything about it prior to Kevin's email. The puck that they use, it's I want to say maybe 3 or 4 times the size of an NHL puck, but there's like these metal balls, I think, inside of it that like creates a bunch of noise when you're playing. And just watching the highlights of these players, it's incredible what they do. And so, yeah, there's that event. If you want to learn about it, you can go there online and go there in person, learn about the sport.
Yeah, it looks awesome. It sounds awesome. It's a great event. I'm hoping I can get down there one of the days. It's I was looking ahead, and that weekend is a little tough for me. My godson's actually getting baptized that weekend. But if I can, I'm gonna try to get down there and check this out.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up, Brian, because we got this email a week or two ago, and yeah, I didn't know much about it either. So definitely, if you're intrigued by, if you're a listener and you're intrigued by what Brian has just kind of laid out, think about going and supporting that event.
Brian, what was the website one last time?
www.usahockey.com/blind hockey classic.
All right.
Yeah, and the plays that they make and their skating ability, it's impressive isn't even the word. So I would encourage you all, if you can't make the event, like I said, look up highlights of blind hockey on YouTube. It's incredible. So with that in mind, thank you all very much for listening, and we'll talk to you on Wednesday. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.